Hey, bonjour, it's Al from Al's Rolling Nut House. It's Sunday, and it's 18th, I think, August 18th. It's beautiful. It's a humid day, and it must be getting into the 80s now. I got the coveralls on because I don't want to get grease all over me. It's a pain in the neck to clean off. But, oh yeah, it's beautiful. Check out the flowers and everything. The hanging basket's about all I got. Hang the clothes out today. This things should dry. I got a battery, a Milwaukee battery on charge in a Sprinter van, charging from the solar on the roof, which is great. The bus is, solar is charging the house batteries, and then it overflows onto the engine batteries. So that's pretty good. So I want to follow up with the electrical things that I've found real quick. I appreciate the feedback from folks. That's great. So I'm trying to figure out in my mind, like, why do these people put all the electronics down low inside the on the frame rail? And of course, when you buy a bus or something like that, it comes it's being delivered to a factory, to Bluebird, as a frame and steering wheel, I guess, an engine and transmission, and then you get your it goes from there. So the electrical is mounted on the frame because that's all that's there, and then eventually things get changed, I guess. So I found this box in the wheel well, my front driver's side wheel well, another fuse block, and it's 200 amp fuse in there, and then also small fuses that go to the engine ECU and the TCM and instrumentation, and those are all hidden in this junction box, which is kind of rusting on the outside, but the integrity seems good on the inside, so thank God for that. And then let's get this down here. Let's see if I get enough light to show you the starter. Cleaned off the terminals there. So that's all cleaned up now, and that fuse block. The other thing, keep in mind, this is a 2002 and we're on 2019 right now. So the plastics, when I went to unbolt those 220 amp fuses, 125 amp actually fuses, they were, what do you call this, like the plastic wasn't holding the back side of the bolt. It kind of stripped. So, like, if you were on the side of the road and, dependent on this for transportation, you'd kind of be screwed. And I'm sure you could rig something up, but, I've got to revisit that. So, I'm learning a lot crawling around under here, which is good and bad. And then on the last time I had wiggled some wires, and there was a hint of flashing on the display on the transmission. Again, it's an Allison MD3060 transmission, and so I learned they had an Allison 101 class on YouTube. How cool is that? So there's the TCU, and it's mounted up here in the front, which could be good or bad. And the way this thing is parked, well, the sun's right in our eyes here. The way that it's parked, the rainwater would come down the front windshield and then perhaps leak across all these things. So I'm checking out like relays here that are not, they used to be mounted to the wall, front wall here, but they're not. So they seem pretty watertight, but you never know. After I wiggled some wires last time, I was like, oh man, it flashed and glimmer of hope, but nothing happened. And then you see in this TCU harness, this is the one that goes down to the transmission. There's a blue wire that's disconnected, and apparently there are wires here that are looped through, not used in the harness. So that was something. And then up here at the end of the harness, sometimes they're taped, and that tape keeps the end of the loom from chafing against the insulation. There was one wire that looks suspect, and it seems okay. Connectors all seem okay. The pin connectors seem okay. I opened the TCU to see if there was any corrosion, no water damage, nothing going on in there. There's a piece of ribbon cable that separates it right here from like a circuit board on this side and a circuit board on the back side. And on LED TVs and those flat screen TVs and stuff, they use a lot of ribbon cables, and there's a lot of connection failures between circuit boards and ribbon cables. And so, but this seems to be sealed pretty well. The other thing is that I learned that the Allison MD3060 has communication, how do you call it? Like a serial, I guess a serial communication board. And so the sensors on the transmission, you know, at the output shaft, at the input, you know, on the, off the, not really the flywheel, at the torque converter, and then the flow, and the computer has an algorithm programmed in that, you know, senses when to shift and all that, and which is great, and it works harmoniously with the ECU. And also the on this we have a Telma driveline retarder. There's another what do you call it? I guess you call it a computer for that, and I'll have to check that out too. The you know, connections there, but it seems like this thing is not getting power, and I just can't believe, you know. Well, who knows? You know, maybe a power surge, a lightning strike, or whatever. Another thing they tell you too is just to be aware of for anybody doing this. They specifically tell you, like, if you're welding on this frame, be very careful, like, to protect this TCM and the engine ECU, or TCU, whatever you call it. Anyway, you know, any arc, you know, big surges or anything like that could fry the electronics on it. The chip, I guess, is very volatile. And don't ask me how you protect it. Do you unplug everything? And I'm assuming it keeps memory hot, even with everything disconnected. It's some kind of a, what do you call it, like an EEPROM or something that maintains memory. I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna learn. And but like all these relays, I was just going through checking these relays that used to be mounted on the wall are I guess, I don't know. One of them's probably the parking, you know, engine in park enables the ignition system process, you know, and different functions. Don't know what they all are. I'll have to learn more. There were two fuses. This fuse I got voltage on. This one was a fuse. I'm gonna put a fuse back on there. This is what somebody had done, and sort of a goof, because you can see they used a heat shrink or something on there and respliced to make a nice fuse, but it wasn't getting 12 volts, so I just cut it out and put, you know, bypassed it temporarily just to see if it would work, and no luck. So we're still checking, and I'm trying to follow this wire harness back to the back of the transmission, and that leads me to my next sort of challenge. Let me crawl over here again. Oh, pardon me. These rocks feel really good on your back, I guess. I gotta get some. My creeper you can't really use in here. So the harness goes along, the TCU harness goes along next to the turbo, you know, where it could get some heat there. All that looks okay. I looked inside the loom and stuff, and then it disappears to a point where I can't really access it. But from there, anyway, it jumps up on top of the transmission. I used my camera up top, and there's some identification numbers on the top of the transmission, which will be helpful. And there's a lot of things we don't see in here that you can't, you know, wouldn't otherwise find. But what I need to find out is, oh, let me crawl back here a little bit more. Oh, here we go. Here's the back of the transmission. So rear seals were replaced on this when I had it, when the major overhaul was done, and so things are a little spattered along the underneath, which is good rust proofing, but not so good for wire harnesses. But so this is where the wires come in. I hope I get enough light there. And so it's round, and I don't know, I'm gonna screw this up if I don't have some kind of, anybody has any experience, I appreciate it, or whatever. This clip comes out, and then maybe you unscrew this thing and then it unplugs. So far I haven't really been able to rotate it or anything, pull it or whatever, so I'm not quite sure on that. I got to do a little more research. If anybody has any ideas, let me know. So you can see the front speed sensor for the torque converter, the rear speed sensor for the output shaft, and on the other side I think there's another sensor for the flow. And I'm learning all about the transmission. Not that I'm going to do anything, but it's interesting to learn and the logic and all that. So anyway, hey, thanks a lot. God bless, and thank you for your concern and thoughts and prayers for my wife Diane, and she seems to be in good spirits, and we're still got a whole bunch of appointments upcoming liver transplant stuff. Learn about that. And so keep in prayer a lot of other people with health issues too that are very challenging. And so the bus problems are minor. We're not going anywhere, any big trips anytime soon anyway. But I'm fascinated and hope to be able to troubleshoot this thing. I'm sure it's got to be something simple, stupid. But thank you again for your input and ideas. I appreciate it. Oh, God bless you guys. Take care.